been impressive. I don't think I've, in my time, seen something grow so fast as AFT has grown within the Alliance. So from nothing to a huge number of active and completed trials in just a few years, with, again, lots of enthusiasm. So next, sorry, no time for questions still. We're just going to, so you know, have a working lunch so you can wrap your brain around that. We've talked a lot about ways to engage patients with PROs and so forth. Well, another way to engage patients, of course, is to engage patients themselves. So we've always had an incredibly helpful and strong patient advocate committee within the Alliance, and the chairs, Gavin and Patty Spears, are here to talk to you a little bit about what they do. Details. Okay, you gave it ahead of time, right? So you're probably, oh no, sorry, eek. Wrong one.
Well, welcome. It's good to be here. I wish I was here for Lori's presentation, actually, and for Susan's. You know, I think you're hearing a lot of really good information today. What I'm going to tell you about is the Patient Advocate Committee, and it's co-chaired by myself and Pat Gavin. I'll tell you a little bit about our goals and what we do and who we are, some pictures, and then a little bit of the examples of what we've done for the committee on the whole, and then Pat's gonna follow up at the end with a personal story or personal statement that he's so good at. So I'm more of the structured PowerPoint person. So the Patient Advocate Committee, so why do you have patient advocates involved in clinical research? And, you know, we're a Patient Advocate Committee committed to the Alliance, and we represent the perspective of the patient in the delivery of all the clinical trials that come from the Alliance, including the AFT trials. So we work together, we're multidisciplinary, and we try to make sure that the best trials go forward that patients really want to enroll in, and that really answer the questions that are critical for patients and that will really drive the patient care forward and, in the end, prevent or treat cancer. Who we are, we're patients, but we're also caregivers. Not all of us have been patients of cancer. Some have been caregivers of cancer patients. You know, our neuro-oncology advocate, for example, had a husband who had glioblastoma and a brother as well. And so she's very, very active in the advocacy community on behalf of others. So we're not all survivors, but a lot of us are. Some are in active treatment, some are out of treatment. You know, we have all different types. We also have really good connections in the community. I think Pat has a really good connection with the CCOP in his area and the community oncology groups, and a lot of our advocates do. Jo Ellen is sitting there. She has a real good community connection. We also have connection to advocacy groups, and we bring all that to the table as well as we go forward. And this is a picture of some of us. We've had some meetings where some of our members have been missing because of going through treatment. This meeting, we have a couple of members going through treatment who can't make it to the meeting. And so a year ago maybe, we took this picture. We had a couple that were out and took a picture. This is just some of our members of the committee. And this is our committee. We're pretty strong. We have about 21 members. A couple are non-funded members. That means that they really help us in some of the reviewing concepts, being on protocols, but they don't come to the meeting anymore, but they've come in the past. So we know who they are, they know who the Alliance is, and they still contribute. We also have some that are core Patient Advocate Committee members, funded through the Patient Advocate Committee and the Alliance. Some are funded through the foundation, some are funded through different modality committees like the Health Outcomes Committee. Thought it was really important to have dedicated advocates, so they actually pay for 2 advocates to come to these meetings, just like the Health Disparities Committee also funds a couple of advocates. And we're always open to that as committees move forward and realize that they need more input from patients as they're developing these concepts and going forward. And so we're a pretty strong group right now. We've got a new advocate at this meeting. So we're really excited about that, a new GI advocate, Yasmin Watson. So we're always growing too and replacing. And these slides are just to illustrate that we do have advocates that are fully committed and integrated into pretty much most of the committees that are within the Alliance. You've probably heard about a lot of them through these presentations, and these are the disease committees. We have members, the starred members are the ones where this is their primary committee, whereas others are on those committees as their secondary committee, because IVIS is actually, funded through the Health Disparities Committee, but she's fully committed also to the Breast Committee, for example. In the modality committees, we try to cover most of those that need advocates that bring protocols forward or that make critical decisions that patients need to be involved in. So we try to have representation on most of those committees as well. The ethics committee is one that we have good representation on most of the time, and others. Also, the cancer control program, I really enjoy those committees, actually. We have good representation on those committees. They're really committed to patient advocates, and they're really committed to having the patient voice in the room while they're discussing protocols coming forward or ideas coming forward. And so we're pretty well represented in those committees as well. And so what do we do? Some people say, so what do you do as part of it? And we participate in all the meetings here, as well as the telephone calls that go on in between the meetings. We bring the patient perspective to the table, we bring urgency to the table, and we bring the concerns of the patient to the table while trials are being developed. We look at patient burden, we look at the importance of the question, is this really an unmet need? How is this going to benefit patients if it's a positive trial, or even if it's a negative trial? How is it going to impact patient care? And since we do volunteer at the local level, we can also disseminate information and support through those areas as well. And so now I'll go through some of the things that we actually do. Like I can say, that we do all this, but what do we actually do as a committee? So every concept that goes forward to the central office is actually reviewed by an advocate. We've been pretty active in that area, and they do a written review and hand it in and try to attend the telephone calls when they're discussed. And it's really important, and that information actually goes back to the PI of the study, and they actually answer those questions that are brought up if there are questions brought up. Hopefully the advocate has been involved in creating that concept or in the committees where it's been discussed, but sometimes it's really good to have a separate set of eyes, and seeing it in writing is very different than seeing it on a slide set. So it's really kind of a nice thing that we do. When the protocol is going through protocol development, we've, through the help of Mike Kelly, we now have an advocate on every study team where we actually are involved from draft 0 through draft 4 of the protocol development. And so we kind of follow the development of the protocol, and then when the consent form comes in, which is usually draft 4, but when the consent form comes in, we've already been involved in the development of that protocol, so we're very familiar with it and can really look at that consent form and make sure it's readable by patients, it's understandable by patients, and that it's at a right reading level, Colleen would say. She's very good at that. And so I think that, doing that, it's really been helpful for our advocates to learn the whole system, as well as the study team to learn the value of the advocate. Accrual, I think patients can pick out what those barriers to accrual might be. We actually developed the accrual checklist that's submitted at the same time as the concept. And I'm working on another checklist with NCI that's more involved to submit as well. Because I think, it's really helpful. And patient education is one of the things that we like when you do a trial, especially in this day and age of very complex trials where you have maybe a screening and then a treatment, and you're looking at this mutation or that, or the immunotherapy trials are very complex. Really breaking that down so that patients can understand, having materials that you can give to the patient that's in lay language, simplified but not too simplified, so that they understand what kind of treatment they're getting. The patient brochures, we're going to try to have those for each trial going forward, and things like that. So just kind of things around accrual we work on. Results, Deb Collier is really instrumental in this area. She's one of our advocates. Returning results to patients. Can you write a lay summary of every protocol? And we've been doing that and posting them on the website. We have quite a few now. But we're really looking at revamping that system and saying, can we do it in a more patient-friendly way and get it out there broader and have more aesthetically pleasing kind of graphics and things like that. so that patients can know, what happened in our trials and the success of our trials, especially the government-funded trials. Patient materials, brochures, we're looking at doing thank you letters to participants. ECOG Akron already does this in all their trials. They have thank you letters in their appendix and the accrual checklist. We've been instrumental. Data sharing, we wrote a resolution last year about data sharing. We think it's vital that government-funded trials through the NCTN, they share their data with everyone so that we can glean more information from the data. And these are trials that were completed many years ago, have been published on many years ago. Can we put those in a public database like Project Datasphere or the NCTN portal where other people can use the data and aggregate that data to really glean all the information that we can? PCORI projects, the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute. Pat and I just popped over from a meeting from one of those groups. We've been instrumental in most of those projects, not all of them, but most of them. And we're a good patient stakeholder group for any project that you're moving forward in PCORI. The patient advocate group here, during these meetings, you can have your stakeholder meetings, you can have meetings with us as patient partners and different things. So I think we're really valuable to that system as well. And publications, we've been pretty well published over the years, whether it's blogs or whether it's scientific publications or other publications. Our group is pretty prolific, I think, with 13 publications between November 2015 and 16. I think we've been pretty good. And also, we've got national recognition. One of our members, he can't be here today. He's under pretty extensive treatment for metastatic prostate cancer right now, but he won the Distinguished Public Service Award at ACR last year. So we're very proud of him, and we're proud of all of our advocates. They're really exceptional people. So now I'll hand it over to Pat, who will say a few words.
Hi, I always introduce my group by saying, hi, I'm Pat Gavin. I'm a cancer survivor. I'm alive today by the grace of God and the fact that I participated in a cancer clinical trial. I've been involved as chair or co-chair of the Patient Advocate Committee, I think, for as long as there's been an alliance, and it's been a wonderful place to be part of. Early on, when I started working as a research advocate, there's a woman by the name of Connie Shaponik, who is director of the local NCARP Corp in Grand Rapids. As she was speaking to a group like you, she talked about make sure you put a face on your research. In addition to doing all this stuff that Patty talked about, that's really what we want to help you do. By the nature of who you are, when you go out into the community in front of regulators, in front of funders, in front of whoever you go in front of, you're perceived to have a conflict of interest because you're making your living doing what you're doing. We don't have that perceived conflict of interest. We're there to help support you. The picture on this slide is an example of that. You heard my introduction at the beginning. This is a picture of my daughter carrying a sign at the March for Science that happened in Washington, D.C. a couple weeks ago, where she kind of took a little bit of my introduction and made that her sign. That picture appeared on the front page of the Washington Post. So we carry a weight that you can't possibly carry when we go out and try to sell that idea of the importance of cancer research and the importance of clinical trials out to the public. You're going to see more and more in your career that almost every funding avenue that you have for funding your research is going to require that there be a patient advocate involved in that process, and we're involved in a lot of them. We're there to help, and I think will find that we do help. Patty mentioned the PCORI projects. Of every one of the PCORI initiatives that have been put forward through the Alliance, we've been involved from day one, and every one of those has got funded. That is very unusual, as you well know. So we're here to help and look forward to working with all of you. Thanks for having us.